You know, that's what people don't talk a lot about, I don't think. One of the pains of hell, in fact, probably the pain of hell, is that you're going to be separated from God. And that is going to cause immense pain because the thing that you could have had, you don't have it anymore. And that's what the devil wants, right? Because what did the devil had? He had relationship with God and he lost it. And so he wants to inflict that pain, that punishment on us.
I came across this very short video of someone who thinks hell is going to be a party, unlike the scary, torturous depictions of hell that many Christians share. And this kind of thinking is pretty common, I suppose. A lot of people either imagine they'll be partying with their friends in hell, or that hell doesn't exist at all. Then I came across this video, and she made a really good point.
I don't think people understand how horrific hell actually is. Jesus said in Mark chapter 9, verse 48, that it's a place where the maggots don't die. And the fire never goes out. And if you know God, I bet you any money, the maggots be the same size as Thanos. And if you think about maggots, maggots only operate around what is dead and nasty, and they eat that, which means the maggots are going to be eating you over and over again because it's eternal, which means you cannot die. And to understand how horrific hell actually is, read Mark chapter 5, the demon legion, the spirits. The Bible says that in verse 10, that they begged him, that being Jesus, again and again, not to send them to that distant place. Demons don't even want to go there.
Anyway, this also reminds me of this clip of Father Edward Looney. Listen to this.
When I was driving to the airport, I got behind this car. And you all know, like, the Christian fish symbol, and it says Christian or believer or something like that. So I got behind a car on the highway, and this little symbol was not the Christian fish, but it was a satanic emblem, like a satanic fish. In the fish, it said Satan. The license plate of the car said Marduk, which is a Babylonian god, so one of these false gods. And I just really thought about that as I followed that car. That imagine, like, in your life, believing in Satanism so much that you proclaim that to the world. And then imagine, I don't want you actually to imagine this, but just to think about it. But just to think about, if you're declaring, I am this Satanist, loud and proud, telling the world, well, what awaits you? Eternal damnation, the fires of hell. And to say that you are freely choosing that, I want the fires of hell. How awful. What misery that person, not only for all eternity, but how miserable must they be as people. It really broke my heart following this car, and I prayed. I prayed real hard, prayed a rosary for that person. But I was beside myself. I can't imagine, like, putting your faith in that. It's, by your fruits you'll know them. I was at a restaurant and I thought, and it was close to the Shrine and Champion, and there's a table, a mom and three, daughters, and I just looked at them and I thought, they're Catholic. They went to the shrine, and sure enough, their food comes and they say, "Bless us, O Lord," and make the sign of the cross, and what I said to myself was like, you could tell, I could tell even before they did that they were believers. There was something exuding from them, and that was because they love God, because they pray, and that's overflowing from their life. So much so that it bore witness to me at a table nearby. Imagine this person, Satan on his back car. He doesn't have that fruit. I don't think somebody would say, I would look at this guy if he was at the table. I would just say, wow, that man really looks sad. It looks like he needs something.
And here's the rest of that clip on how the souls in hell are torn apart by their regret, profound solitude, and weep over their mistakes.
That's what people don't talk a lot about, I don't think. One of the pains of hell, in fact, probably the pain of hell, is that you're going to be separated from God. And that is going to cause immense pain because the thing that you could have had, you don't have it anymore. And that's what the devil wants, right? Because what did the devil had? He had relationship with God and he lost it. And so he wants to inflict that pain, that punishment on us. Here's another thing I don't think people think about. There's a book by Father Gabriel Amorth. Maybe some of you have heard him. He's passed, I think, a few years ago, but he was the head exorcist of Rome. And he said in his book, he was talking to a demon in the midst of an exorcism, and he gave him a scenario, and he said, what if two people hated each other for their entire life? And, they were just mean to each other, and they hurt each other, and they hurt each other's families. When they die, do they go to hell and hate each other forever in eternity in hell? And the demon, he said, you're so stupid, priest. You know nothing about hell. He said, down here, everyone lives caved in on themselves, torn apart by their regrets. There's no relationship with anyone. Everyone is in profound solitude and weeps over their mistakes. Hell is like a cemetery. If you, for a long time, I thought hell, burning fires and flames and it sucks, everybody's in relationship. But if you have no relationship with anybody, and the only thing you can ever remember forever is every bad thing you've ever done, I can't think of a worse punishment. I mean, what's the worst punishment for human beings? Solitary confinement. But we still have God. You pull that away? I don't know. Something to think about.
And Father Ripperger also shared something about people who worship the devil and how they're clearly deceived by the evil one about what hell is actually like.
I mean, where do these people think they go when they die?
Well, they know they go to hell.
Why would you want to go to hell?
Well, because they have a false impression, because the demons will leave this with this, is that if they do a lot of evil in this life, which empowers the demons, then that will give them power when they get to hell. And so when they have that, and they actually believe the exercise of their power in hell will be something that they can then have a kind of a comfortable hell, or it's not going to be as bad because I have all this power. And part of it is that they just have an aversion for things that are good anyway. And so they don't want to go that route. But they so I'm going to end up in hell, so I might as well get as far as I can. And that's one of the things we're seeing among some of the Satanists now, is that that's why they engage in things like child sacrifice and things of that sort, because they're thinking that once they get to hell, they're going to have all this power. But what they don't realize is that something which Satan himself actually once said to me, because I was noticing something in his behavior, because I wrote 3 books in psychology. So one of the things I just started doing is watching patterns of behavior of these guys, and both as individuals and as general a lot of demons. And I said to him, your exercise of power in hell is actually painful, isn't it? It's not pleasant. He says, no, I hate it. He says, I use it to keep, to try and protect myself, but I hate it. And so they don't seem to realize that even they might get a certain amount of delight in having all this power in this life, but even if they have it in the next, they'll be miserable. And they don't see it.
We're miserable in this life too.
They are miserable, but they think it's going to be like this life.
And speaking of people who worship the devil, just to drive the point home about hell, I'll share this one from Father Iannuzzi again. Listen to this.
And you mentioned something about Satanists whenever they do rituals or something like that. What do their guardian angels do? Yeah, this is really a travesty, because some of these souls may be lost for all eternity, and their guardian angels will carry that with them for all eternity. That is the loss of the soul to whom they were entrusted. But the guardian angels are not blamed by God if a soul should not follow the will of God or lose its own immortal soul to Satan, because they are commissioned to do exactly what God asks of them, and that is to light, to govern, to guide, to protect. And the letter to the Hebrews speaks of the angels and says that we don't serve them, they serve us. Now, why is that? It's because, and this has to do with why Lucifer rebelled against God in heaven, because Jesus, according to the teachings of Saint Polycarp, who was a disciple of Saint John the Evangelist, and the disciple of Polycarp was Saint Irenaeus, according to Polycarp, Saint John the Evangelist taught that God revealed to Lucifer before he became evil or rebelled against God, that the second person of the Trinity would assume a human and not an angelic nature. And Satan did not want to serve a rational being that was inferior to him intellectually, which we are. So he said, I will not serve this plan. And Lucifer did not enjoy the beatific vision. Had he passed that test and accepted God's plan, he would have been admitted to the beatific vision, because once you enjoy the beatific vision, you cannot sin. So you see, Lucifer still could have sinned, meaning he was not yet admitted to that beatific vision. And therefore, the letter to the Hebrews, when he states that we serve, I'm paraphrasing, we serve God and the angels serve us, it's because, in part, of what St. Paul says, that in the end we will judge angels. So even though the angels surpass us intellectually, rationally, because of the incarnation of Christ into human nature, we surpass them in nobility. And therefore, our guardian angels will always carry that loss of a soul if it goes to hell through unrepentant satanic rituals. And but remember, even though it carries that loss, there's a certain joy in the fact that God's justice is impeccable. So if a soul is lost, it's not the fault of the angel, it's not the fault of God, it's the fault of that soul. And God's justice is glorified in heaven as much as his mercy. So they don't, let's say, they don't live in a state of sorrow in heaven, the guardian angels. They rejoice in the justice of God as well.
Well then, that will be all for the video this time. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us. And hopefully all of you have learned something from this video. And remember, if there's any feedback or suggestion, please let us know in the comments below. And until the next one, thanks again for watching and may God bless you.